This is the full-length video discussion I had with Craig DeWitt, a former Ripple employee who started when the team was very scrappy, an adjective Craig used to describe the early years, as you'll soon hear. He and Amir Sarhanji, who also was with Ripple from 2018 to July 2022, also served as a board member of Tranglo, by the way, and that's the payments company that Ripple acquired 40% share of. And yeah, before that, he was with Google. Well, anyway, the two of them have started a new company, and it's called Supermojo. Supermojo is making NFTs easy for everyone. I used their platform and tested their UI to purchase the NFT by artist Bua. Their seed round of $6 million was backed by Ripple, along with names you might recognize like Gemini, Arrington, Circle Ventures, Draper, among others. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did making it. I think it's going to be one of the most memorable for me. And when you get to the part where I'm talking about the bronc he was riding, which is used on the header of his Twitter, well, it turns out my memory was a little off. He was actually on a bull. Okay, everybody, do enjoy. Hey, everybody, it's Eddie from Tokyo, and I've got a special guest with me today. I've been waiting for this. This is Craig DeWitt, and if you don't know Craig, you're going to know Craig after this interview that we are doing. And so much I want to know. He is one of the earliest employees at Ripple. He was probably one of the first 20, I think, somewhere in there, that started as that initial team. And he was with them for many years and did a lot of great work, and has since gone off on his own with another partner. And maybe you should talk about that too, because I know there's two of you really that are leading this project, if I'm not mistaken. And he's with Supermojo. So Craig, welcome.
Hey, thank you very much for having me. Excited to chat. Longtime follower of your content over the last, I don't know how many years it is, Eri, but all the way back to probably when I started Ripple.
wasn't quite that early, but the years go by, don't they? So tell us, Supermojo. I think a lot of people, well, for one, that's just a really cool name. I'd love to know where that name came from. And then tell everybody what it is you're doing. What's the problem that you saw and how are you solving it?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that we saw is that NFTs are very, very cool, and that they have a groundbreaking level of technology that can bring new use cases to consumers. If you take what Bitcoin or what XRP does really well, is they allow people to actually own a digital asset native on the chain, whether it's Bitcoin or XRP. NFTs take that same kind of capability and they extend it beyond cryptocurrencies into digital assets or even real world assets that can be represented on chain. That is very cool and fundamentally something that is new, that hasn't really been harnessed yet in terms of its full use case. Supermojo is trying to make that experience easy for folks, in that actually interfacing, even calling them NFTs, it's scary. And they're hard to touch and use and store. And like, how do you buy them even? That's really where Supermojo comes in. We make it really easy for people to buy. All you need is a credit card. We make it really easy for people to hold. All you need is a phone number and an email address. And the critical piece is we make it really easy for people to use. And we see the forefront at NFTs being beyond just art, which I think is cool, but is small in comparison to what NFTs can actually accomplish. And that is, we make it easy for people to take these NFTs and to get utility out of them. Because I've been saying it from day one, even working on the XRP ledger, utility matters. And it matters the same thing when you're talking on NFTs. Now, about Supermojo. I initially thought NFTs were kind of silly and a little stupid. And then I started playing with them. There were a couple collections I was using where actually allowed me to do actions in ways that I hadn't been able to do before with just like normal memberships. And it dawned on me, and I was talking to Amir, it's like, hey, there's real magic in this NFT use case. There's some serious mojo here. Mojo, another word for magic. It's like, well, how do we supersize it? How do we make it available to everyone? Well, it's called the company Supermojo.
Mm.
That's where the name came from.
I like it, and it fits well. I did use your application once. There you had a great artist that was doing some wonderful music inspired artwork, and I did make a purchase on your site where I was able to actually use fiat. I mean, it's something that if you don't have crypto, I can use my credit card, for example. So I think you're also maybe making that first step to appealing to people who are out and beyond the crypto world. Is that not correct?
It's exactly right. What I have found is when you look at the general population of people who can benefit from some of this technology, very few of them hold crypto today or have crypto. And then on top of that, very few of them are as even skilled as yourself to be able to use that crypto to take actions on chain. And so a lot of what needs to happen, a lot of what I'm excited about is making it really easy for that 99.9% of the population to use existing user journeys like credit cards or debit cards, what have you, to acquire those assets, even internationally. So we support a huge number of countries and assets that people can use to purchase with.
Have you ever thought about those tokens that might be in a fungible way as well, an updatable version of a token?
Yeah. So there's a really interesting thing that's happening in the world right now, and that is fungible tokens or cryptocurrencies. They're definitely under attack right now. I'm sure your listeners are familiar. The regulatory environment around those assets is not great. And so when you're doing anything that touches cash-like instruments, you get into a different form of regulation, one that I'm very familiar with through payments. Things like FATF and the travel rule and sanction screening and all those kind of things. It's very, very painful to facilitate onboarding into that ecosystem. But what's great about NFTs, at least for the most part, is they're seen as digital assets today, like actual assets, in the same way that you can buy a DVD on Amazon. And what that allows us to do by focusing just on the NFT side of the business or these assets, we can make it really, really simple for a user just to pay with a credit card versus that whole thing that you may have done if you ever try to use like buying cryptocurrencies with assets. Show me your passport, do your face circle thing, give me your blood type, like call your mom, have just a mess. And so primarily our focus have been on NFTs because we can provide the best use case through a degree of focus there.
We have art now that's really adopted the non-fungible token format. Mm-hmm. What's next? What are you seeing? What do you think is going to be the next big use case for NFT?
I see a couple phases happening right now. The first phase that's really starting to come out are corporates, or that is major brands, leveraging NFTs as a way of getting closer to their customers. What I love about that is they're not calling them NFTs. In the same way that, when we talk about, hey, send me an email, it's not, hey, let's engage with the SMTP protocol. Like, no. It's not what people want to do. They don't want to touch NFTs. NFTs aren't the thing, right? NFTs are the thing that gets you to the thing. And for brands, that thing is a closer relationship with your most diehard fans. And so what I see, and a lot of the conversations I'm having right now, are with tier one brands that all of your users will know, who are looking at ways of using this as a technical vehicle for folks to be able to show affinity towards a brand and get additional utility from that brand, whether that's a redemption for physical merchandise or redemption for tickets or access to specific digital assets that are within the ecosystem that have a scarcity to them. These are all brand new things. And what's great is that, let's just pick one of the biggest brands, like say Coca-Cola. Think about the amount of money that Coca-Cola spends on advertising. It's incredible. And it's just they barf money into Google and Facebook to hopefully you drink that delicious sugary cola, right? But when you think about how far they are from me, a user, because I do drink Coke, they have the wholesalers, the bottling, the retailers, They're like 7 layers away from that consumer, right? Well, now for the first time, you don't have to rely on someone going to coca-cola.com or hopefully clicking on an ad through Facebook. There's now a way for users to opt into a service to get direct merchandise or ads or information or utility from the brand. That's worth a lot of money to these companies, and I'm seeing a lot more of that. So that's the first thing. It's fairly, I think, obvious to folks who've touched these that is a next wave of usage coming in. But beyond that, I have been in payments for a very long time, and it's something that I love. And the reason I've always loved payments is because it's a foundational or fundamental idea that everything else is built on top of. Like the core of any contract is essentially payment at some point, right? And so what can you do with payments? Well, when you start getting into the really important things where payments come into play, you start looking at fixed income contracts, that's debt issuance or bonds, and you start looking at some of the actual securities that power our world, our financial world today. And these are things that lend themselves very, very well to non-fungible tokens. A debt issuances, a bond issuances, for example, lend themselves perfectly to that. And if you think about it, based on the amount of NFTs or coupons that you hold, payments happen programmatically on chain to those holders. There's no reconciliation there, right? It's not like you need State Street to charge a fee to custody all that. You can do it all on chain without a bunch of reconciliation. The kind of money that we're talking about for those kind of bond issuances, by the way, you're looking at trillions of dollars a year. And then you lay on FX contracts on top of it. You're talking about, and this sounds like a funny number, but on an annual basis, like quadrillions of dollars of value. And that's where I see this. That's where I see this really going, is you put all this together and you have this incredible ecosystem for commerce and finance together. And that's the beauty of where NFTs, I think, are going.
Are you running on the XRPL rails? Is that how you're processing? If someone were to utilize, well, even fiat, are you using the rails right now?
Yes. So when you bought that NFT through our system,
Yes.
you pay with a card. And what we did is we received that card. We went on chain. This was on XRPL. It was a minted and then delivered to a wallet that was your wallet that you could then withdraw. I think you mentioned that you would withdraw on it as well.
Yeah, I moved it. Yeah, but that, yeah, and the process was very easy, by the way.
Thank you very much.
I was really. You're always nervous about doing something for the first time because it feels like such a learning curve, but it was painless.
I'm putting that on the website. Thank you very much. Not a paid spokesman, everyone. No. So I appreciate that. So all the activity outside of the card is taking place on XRPL. And so what we built is an application layer on top of the standards that allow NFT interactions on chain, including the DEX. And then we've also built an application layer that ties together real world payments or the card payment with the kind of transactions that have to take place on XRPL. A lot of that learning, as you can imagine, comes from all the effort of building RippleNet over the years.
Yeah, lucky you. You had that inside scoop,
I think so.
A how-to. Yeah.
That's right.
So just going to Ripple really quick, we've seen a huge change, you more than myself, but I've noticed just in the years I've been in how many new people are on the Ripple team. You started in, let's just say, somewhere in the first 20 employees. It now is pushing nearly 1,000. It's changed a lot. I'm sure the culture changed a lot. I'm just kind of curious from when you first started till when you decided to venture off with Supermojo, what was the biggest change that you saw or that you encountered with that growth and that addition of all those new people that came in that, when you look at their LinkedIn, they have fantastic bios. I mean, their resumes are just stellar, and they've been here and here and here and here, and they do that 3 to 5 year hop, but they're building their resumes and they've decided to stop off at Ripple after working at, incredible companies. It might be their third or fourth stop in their career. And I'm just kind of curious how the culture changed in Ripple.
Yeah. So I'm not sure which employee number I was, but I
Mm,
did join in 2015.
yeah.
The biggest change that comes to mind that I actually recognized was when we moved offices. So we were in an office on one side of the street, and then one day we got too big, and then we rented a lower floor, and it was just a mess with people running around. Then we moved across the street to a new building. That change is a kind of a special change for me because it was the flipping point, I think, where Ripple went from a startup, what felt very much like a startup and still figuring things out, and to a, and not in a negative way, but like a real business, a corporate entity that you'd have no problem having the head of Citigroup come in and work out a, why RippleNet's so much better than WorldLink, right? So that was the big change for me. And I think the big thing that was different is you went from I'd say a scrappy group of folks, at least when I got there in 2015, who were not doing 3 to 5 year stints at banks, then coming as part of their resume. These were, and many of them, that there are many of them still there. These are real believers, people who fundamentally believed that digital assets, and specifically at the time, it was really Bitcoin or XRP, that XRP could fundamentally improve the world through faster transaction times and better payments. And that was it, right? And I'm one of them, because I wasn't doing 3 to 5 years or 2 to 3 years to boost the resume. I was there for 7 years because it's in my soul, my DNA, like fundamentally changed the world. And they did it. We did it. All those people working there, we actually did it. You're moving tens of billions of dollars faster and cheaper than any other system that's ever existed on Earth on cross-border payments. That's incredible. And so, when you move over, at some point, when you're dealing with heads of state, when you're dealing with central banks, you need folks who have that enterprise experience, who are going to not come in and talk with their hands and say, we're changing the world, who's going to talk about things like, ROI and things like that. And so that's a healthy part of the change, and just part of that growth curve,
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you so much, because I think you were instrumental in making a dent in the universe, and you did it I think, for good, and you've changed a lot of lives because of it. And I just want to say thank you so much, just as a person who's out there looking at how technology can improve the world, and you were very instrumental in making that big change happen. So thanks.
Well, thank you very much. But there is still a ton to do. There's still a ton for Ripple to do, and there's still a ton to do on XRPL.
Mm. Well, okay, let's move to another question, which is Liquidity Hub. I saw that you are officially part of the Liquidity Hub solution. I'm kind of curious how that solution works for you. What is it doing to make your business more efficient? And I think I'm just curious, because Liquidity Hub seems to be, I think, where the future is going in terms of that next step of making payments even more faster, more liquid, and more accessible all around the world. So, but I'm kind of curious, how does it actually work for Supermojo?
So as part of Supermojo's business, we are facilitating acquisition or minting of NFTs on XRPL, on Ethereum, and Polygon. And so as part of that, we need a way of very quickly acquiring these assets to be able to use them for on-chain transactions. Now, what we were doing before Liquidity Hub is we were using a combination of the same exchanges that you use, or that folks that listen to the show use, logging in and acquiring and then transferring out and approving the email and then waiting for the cutoff time, which happens like every 15 minutes, depending on the exchange. And then always having that little like, oh my gosh, did I select the wrong address? I've been doing this for like 8, 9 years now. And whenever I click that final withdrawal button, my heart still drops.
Yes.
It's crazy. Liquidity Hub is fantastic because it allows programmatic API access to essentially buy and sell. For us, it's just acquiring these assets and withdrawing them programmatically to the addresses that we've set up to do the NFT acquisition. And so you can think of Liquidity Hub as a hyper efficient in terms of cost way of acquiring digital assets and a hyper efficient way of transferring those digital assets on chain for actual operational usage in our business. And it's been better than any other solution that we've used out there.
Does it mean that there's a pool of assets that are there ready to be accessed for when you need to transact? Is that how Liquidity Hub is utilizing that digital asset?
So from what Supermojo seems, it feels like that. And that we are able to instantaneously have ETH that's available to be transferred. Now, what they're doing behind the scenes, I believe it's an aggregation of a bunch of different liquidity providers. Some of that may be an amount of float, so I can have instantaneous access to it. But from a user perspective, I don't necessarily care. It's just bam, trade, bang, withdrawal. And now I'm able to use this in any kind of on-chain economic activity that I have.
I see. So the arrangement to be able to utilize a market maker or an exchange, and so you've got this wide breadth of partners, if you will, for Liquidity Hub that makes that liquidity doable, accessible 24/7 at any time, as those inventory levels change for whatever reason they're being used out in the ecosystem. I got it.
That's exactly right. And what's most important about this is that I don't have to manage 10 different relationships to play that game, right? And then identify where the best trading levels are across those and break my trade up and then reaggregate and pay the gas. And that's not my business. I'm not a hedge fund, right? I'm trying to make NFTs easier. And so I don't want to deal with any of that. Liquidity Hub handles that all for me. And I know I'm getting the best price. I know it's instant and I know it's, reliable because they're already moving tons of money.
So it works algorithmically where it's not real people sitting there behind a screen looking at different spreads. I mean, it's done automatically.
That's right. Because it's instantaneously, as soon as I need funds, I have funds.
Yeah, pretty incredible.
Yep.
And yeah.
And if you think about it, it's a core technology for what you'd even need for ODL.
Yeah.
Right. Because when you think about what's going on with ODL, you really kind of have that going on two sides, like call it like Euro XRP, PHP, what have you. So it's kind of like two Liquidity Hub trades with a withdrawal. And so this is just like if you break a piece of that use case off, and now you have this instantaneous trade and then withdrawal. So that's really how it functions. And you can think about from an outsider's perspective, if you have flows kind of going both ways, you can create a very healthy business off of that.
Yeah, and I imagine it's just not, as the build out of CBDCs and stable coins, I'm sure that will also be a part of the Liquidity Hub solution too.
Oh, I mean, if you can imagine, if we had a USD CBDC or a Euro CBDC or what have you, any kind of token, if we need to get in and out of that country, like there's your automatic withdrawal mechanism, right, through the payout network there. And so it all fits together very, very well.
Yeah, I like it. It makes sense. And you're right. I think with ODL, Ripple cut their teeth on the process and now just is able to scale it.
Yeah. Now it's chopping wood.
Craig, I've been always wanting to know. I've watched your Twitter feed, and you've got a header on there that shows you on a bronc. Looks like some sort of rodeo. And then, of course, the name that you use on Twitter is Crypto Cowboy. I just have to ask, have you been riding? Do you ride? Is that something from your past? Or tell me the story behind being on top of that bronc.
So I grew up in East San Diego, in a place called Alpine. That's where I was born, not too far away from the border of Tecate, Mexico, which makes a pretty good beer, if you're familiar with that part of the
Red
world.
Label.
You got it with a lime on top, and that's all you need. So I can tell you, when people think San Diego, automatically it's
beach,
beaches and palm trees, but I think for pretty much anywhere in the United States, you get 30-minute, 40-minute, an hour inland from a major place, and it gets country pretty fast. And so in terms of like your answer, go grab these. It's a real thing, Eri. And anybody who knows me knows that that's a daily footwear for me.
So when's the last time you've been on top of a horse? Not necessarily one that's got a bucking cinch on it, but when's the last time you've been on a horse?
Let's see. Probably about 8 months ago. Yeah. I'm up in the Bay Area now. So not a ton of riding happens up here.
Yeah. No, not unless you're riding English and in a covered ring somewhere with jumping. But I know the type of riding you're doing is not in a covered ring with jumps.
That's right.
That's great. Yeah.
So if you're interested in doing anything with NFTs that have mass market appeal, where it makes it easy for people to buy, easy for people to hold, and most importantly, easy for people to use that asset to do something, get merchandise or interface with your brand or company in a new way, that's what Supermojo does. And so beyond just the technology, we also help people understand what those capabilities are. And so reach out to me. It's Craig@supermojo.com. Talk to tons of people every week. I'd love to talk to you about how we can do your project or business or what have you. There's some magic here, and I'm sure we can make it super.
Do say hi to Amir. I remember now. Amir is your partner in crime there, and so I think he spent many years at Ripple as well. So I'm sure everyone wishes him the best too.
Absolutely, I will. I'm actually seeing him later today.
Great. All right, Craig, thanks for joining us and giving us some insight as to what you're up to, and we wish you the very best, and stay in touch with everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.